Three, two, one. What is up, everybody? You are listening, you are watching to the Constant Elevation Podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Rock. So if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, you'll notice that the video of this is not my normal background, right? I'm actually on the road now, and I gave myself the challenge of in the era of can't stop, won't stop, how would I actually record content while I'm on the road? So I decided to bring some of my kit out, and here we are in the hotel room, and I'm excited to continue to pump out content even while I am on the road. So I even have my handy dandy notes here, and so a lot of times when I travel, I spend a lot of time thinking. And so a lot of times, because I'm just uninterrupted, right? And so I don't have the office nagging me about stuff. I have no coaching responsibilities. I'm just kind of alone with my thoughts, and I very much appreciate this time so I can think about a lot of things, either work or professional or personally related. And so I try and maximize this time. And so while I do not always enjoy time being on the road, there's definitely some positive parts of this. And so I want to make sure I take advantage of this. And this was a chance for me to just to challenge myself. How would I record content and very low tech things as far as a podcast and even recording a video? If I bring my kit, I can just get it done. And so happy to continue to welcome everybody back to season 8. I'm glad that everybody's continuing to tune into the show. Thank you for everybody dropping comments and sending me messages for the content. I already got shout out to Alex. He already gave me some comments and feedback that if I was going to find a recording device in order to transcribe my thoughts as I'm driving back and forth from home to work, if there's only one voice recorder thing I should be getting, it should be the Talkboy from Home Alone 2. If you're old enough, you know. I actually looked that up on eBay. I can buy it if I want. I've spent money on sillier things, but the wifey was like, "You're just gonna buy that thing, and then it's not gonna live up to your expectations, and then it's gonna be in the pile of other things you wasted money on." She's not wrong. I didn't buy it yet, but I'm potentially going to make some sort of Amazon wish list. But if anybody wants to donate to the show and just kind of feels in the need to kind of give to a fellow teammate something, here's some random things that I tend to think about. And so, or maybe just an old school cassette recorder kind of thing. I don't want to use the voice memo thing on my phone, just because I feel I think I want the tangible click, record, stop, rewind back, kind of you see in old school movies. I like that idea. And so, but we'll see exactly, or if someone decides to gift me a Talkboy. I'm not mad about that, but again, that no one is required to do that. So in any case, hope everybody's doing well this week, and hopefully everybody's being safe based on the weather. So I was traveling here away from Florida, and did not get caught up in anything. And so very grateful for that. But without further ado, I want to get on with the show. So a couple things I want to talk about this week. And normally, if you've been listening to Constant Elevation, you know that I try and do things in threes. So if you go to constantelevation.co, you'll see some of our show notes. And I'm trying to make sure that I have at least 3 talking points per episode. That way it's easily digestible. I don't expect you to read a long diatribe of my thoughts, but trying to be concise of what I believe are some things that rising leaders in our community need to be thinking about. So, recently, I started to. I am reading Lord of the Rings. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. If I had to pick, this might be a crazy what do you want to call it? Not a conspiracy theory, but a point of contention. There's a word I'm blanking on it. In any case, I believe Lord of the Rings is probably one of the best. It's my best nerdery thing that I love, above Star Wars, above MCU, above all those things. I actually am a really big fan of Lord of the Rings. So I'm reading Fellowship of the Ring now. I forgot to bring it. I'm mad because I forgot to bring it on this trip, and I actually have a lot of time where I could read, but that's beside the point. So as I've been kind of walking around the formations, one of the things, I'll get to why I talk about Lord of the Rings. I ask people, hey, have you seen Lord of the Rings or read it? No. Unfortunately, there's too many people in my damn formation that haven't seen Lord of the Rings or read it. That's fine. I asked, have you seen Star Wars? Be maybe some things. And I'm like, this is not getting better. I thought this was a nerd organization, but that's fine. I asked people if they've read Ender's Game or seen it, and I've seen some mixed responses on that, so that's kind of good. It's a really good book if you haven't read Ender's Game. And so the reason why I asked that question is kind of related to the title of this episode. I believe really good stories start with a map. Okay, really good stories start with a map. I say that because a lot of times when the great stories like Lord of the Rings, or you open the beginning parts of the book, there's something in there like, well, you're going to step into an expansive universe to the point where you need a map. You're going to step into something cool, I believe anyway. And so that idea of just having a map, and what you're happening is, this is where it comes to a leadership kind of piece. Our current wing commander is very much interested in getting to understand the mission sets that we do here, and a lot of us kind of see the world in different through different lenses based on our responsibilities and functional missions. But we all need to make sure we can tell our stories correctly, and I do believe we should start telling our stories with a map. And what I mean by that is having some sort of foundational piece of information that gets you acclimated to the journey you're about to take. So here's some 3 reasons why I believe a great story starts with a map, and you can apply that to your leadership day in and day out. So the first one is, when you look at a map, you actually get acclimated to just the scope of what's going to happen right now, right? And so if you think about like Game of Thrones, you have map of Westeros. If you have Lord of the Rings, you have Middle Earth. If you have the Star Wars galaxy, it's gigantic, and you're going to have places that are uncharted, familiar places. You just understand like, hey, so this is actually the entire game space of where everything and these stories are going to be told. And maybe you have a really most important piece of this part of the map where a lot of the action happens, but you never know when something over here in this kind of like, on the in Game of Thrones, where like the not the Night Walkers, but the bad guys, wow, I'm blanking on that exactly, where they above the North Wall, where the house, wow, I'm blanking out on all of my things, but this is one take, Jake. I'm not gonna repeat re-record this. Just getting acclimated to where the bad guys and the good guys are. So this is important. Understand your terrain and where the friendly and adversary forces are going to be. You need to start kind of understanding what are the major milestones and the key markers you need to acclimate yourself. So starting with a map. So when I talk about how this applies to work, so starting with a map for my function for cyber, it could be meaning like, tell me the network architecture. Tell me like the base boundary. Tell me the major nodes and switches and routers and where the points of presence here on base, because it's important for me to understand which places are more important than others. Then you can even go down to, here's a certain facility, here's the major floors that we have here where the servers are hosted, here's where the Wi-Fi routers are accessed. Those kind of pieces, getting acclimated to your architecture is very important. We can also talk about it from other lenses. So our support squadron, like, tell me about the power and HVAC. Tell me about, for our primary facility, our COOP facility. Tell me about these places and what are the status of these things. Just having that foundational element, that map, and getting acclimated to where all of our resources are and where our personnel are based are very important. And I think because you have to understand those things in the very beginning of any story, so you can actually follow along for the rest of the story, okay? Understand your key pieces of terrain, your mile markers where your references, and just the things that need before you go into any journey. And now you're gonna understand, is it a big wide journey? How wide is this map? How exactly big and expansive is it? Or is it a very small local map, maybe like a village or some sort? Okay, cool. That's much more digestible, but I understand a lot of things could be happening here just in these spaces. So it's important to understand where those important things are. And then once you understand where your map is, now you can actually start measuring your progress on your journey. That's the number 2 point, why I believe the importance of a great story start with a map. When you have a starting place and an ending place, right? Almost like a treasure map. You know more or less how you're gonna traverse between all these dashed lines and then get to where X marks the spot. There's going to be some scary points. Yep, you're going to have to traverse this mountain. That's part, you're going to slow down this piece. There's this river where you take a boat. You can go fast on this piece. Those kind of places where you can measure your progress, you're going to know if you're ahead of schedule, behind schedule, on time. That's the reason why you want to know where your map is and how you are going to be progressing against that, because you want to understand, is your team actually making progress? And you need to hold yourself accountable to those kind of pieces. So if you're the leadership that's kind of setting the pace, if you're in a leadership position, I should say, that's setting the pace for your team, are you pushing them hard? Are you going to be able to, like, no, things are done in, like, they need to be done in 48 hours. We need to reach that ridge in 48 hours to make sure we're getting it done. We need to achieve this part of the project. Whatever it is, you now have some kind of reference point that your entire team can actually rally around and understand and orient themselves of, like, and maybe you're going to be off. Maybe you actually started to go off track and someone's going to be like, sir, ma'am, we were off track. We started going down this rabbit hole of and following this other path that we thought was the right way, but we're actually way off. We have to make up time. We have to work faster to get back on track to meet our intended time and target. You won't know if you're off if you don't have that foundational map where you know you're behind or ahead of schedule. So I really believe that you can actually leverage having a strong map and measuring yourself and your team's progress against that map. There's something to be said as well about, I call it freestyle leadership, and I'm not making up that term, but imagine like, hey, I need to get to that ridge. I need to complete the project and get these things done. Some of our plans don't need to be so prescriptive. It tells you exactly how to get to that point. Like, I don't necessarily have to cross over that mountain to get to that end point. Potentially, I can take the fast route and go around here and go across these fields or take some airlift or something like that. There's ways that you can potentially still get to the end point, but allow your formation some creativity in order to achieve that desired end state. So while I say have a map to understand where you're measuring progress, you don't have to be so prescriptive that this is the only way we can get there. You have to look at all of the factors in order to see how you're measuring against your team's progress. That brings me to my third point. You want to understand what are going to be the internal and external factors that are going to influence your journey, right? And so when you look at a map, you can kind of see, hey, so there's some mountains I need to go across. I'm going to have to take some airlift here. So you understand some of those big maneuver and big movements you and your team are going to have to do. Same thing happens kind of like in a project when you're leading anything in your organization. You probably going to know like, hey, so there's this thing happening on the calendar where I'm going to have to dedicate a lot of time, a lot of resources, because maybe some of our team is going to be gone, or we have a major exercise during this week, so I need to deconflict and not do anything during that week. That's great. That's an important thing to understand on your map, that you're not trying to, you're doing early deconfliction to make sure that your time is going to be optimized as you're moving forward. In addition, kind of think about like, if you're, so my wife knows about this, as far as if you're going to do a super long hike, you need to know where your resupply points are, where you can actually get more food, more fuel, more water, more potentially have a 0 day and enjoy some amenities in town or something like that. Understanding where those points are, those are positive external factors you could take advantage of. Or there's going to be there's a 20-mile stretch where you have no water source. Therefore, we're going to have to pack it in. It's going to suck and it's going to be potentially hot, but you know about it ahead of time because you've done your research on the map to understand your internal and external factors so you can still achieve your desired end state. And so if you take the time to study and really pay attention to your map, how you're going to progress through your journey and can plan accordingly, it's actually not that bad because you plan for it. Sometimes contingencies are going to happen, right? And so you need to be prepared for those unexpected consequences or things that come up. But for the most part, if you study and work hard and prepare, you can actually encounter and make sure those obstacles don't turn into obstacles. They just become accidental experiments. And those become points where you're like, wasn't planning for this, but I'm okay because I've packed in some emergency equipment, or I understand how I can call to ask for help. There are certain ways that you can kind of get through difficult parts of a project or a plan and still continue to make forward progress. And so knowing the external and internal factors ahead of time and studying and preparing for them will really help you achieve success over the long run. So those are the reason why over this last probably like 2 weeks, I've been continuously talking to my team about a map, because I want you to understand the scope and scale of the project we're talking about, and more or less how long this journey is going to take. 2, how do we measure progress? How do we know that we're on time, ahead of schedule, or behind schedule? Those are important, so you make decisions along the way. And then 3, understanding what are the internal, external factors ahead of time, so you can plan for them accordingly and use them to your advantage, and or buckle down because the shit is going to be crappy for a little bit. All of those things actually help you and your team continue to make progress, maybe back each other up when someone needs to take a knee because, hey, somebody has some emergency or something like that. You can make sure that we can accommodate for those things. But these are important things that any team, when you think about the things and work together, you can overcome any obstacle that goes along the way. So these are the reason why I believe just lots of good stories, not every good story, but lots of good stories start with a map. So I really suggest that you understand and work on your map in your formation. So, again, hopefully this the background and everything isn't as jarring as I think. It's actually not that bad, just doing the here in the hotel room. But and hopefully whoever my neighbors are okay with listening to me go on and droll about whatever I'm talking about. But team, last thing I would just want to say, because I want to say it out loud. So I recently lost my grandmother, which really sucks. In the middle of this work week, a lot of busy times going on. I'm going to miss her. Our family is kind of going through some stuff right now. I'm just sharing this on my podcast because I can do whatever I want on my own show. But tough times for the Avila family. We're going to get this through together. I love you and I miss you, Grandma. But I know you with Dad and Uncle Alan, and you're looking over us. So keep on making the family strong. And thank you for everything. And I love you and I miss you. Papa, we are thinking about you. I hope just this positive energy around the world hits your heart, and know that we're going to be here for you, and the rest of the Villa family is going to be okay. But it's tough times for us, but we're going to get through this together. So yeah, just want to share that. Okay, team, take care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.